Hey everyone! Today we're going to be talking about the Princes of the Apocalypse. I'm going to just kind of be doing a little review, sharing my thoughts with it, and get some of Casey's thoughts as well. So I was wonderfully sent this. Full disclosure, I was sent this by Wizards on Friday. I've had a couple of days now to look it over, and yeah, I'll just give some of my thoughts about it. The first, I'll just kind of start off by saying, like all of the D&D stuff for this new edition, it's a beautiful book. The art and just like the spine and the look of it is real great. I of course started on 3.5 with the where it looks like a tome, but I never really felt comfortable like taking those out in public because you're like, oh look, this book looks like it has a sword in it. But this
dragon skin and
yeah, exactly,
little gemstones,
a big eye in the center. I loved that look, but this is certainly a much cleaner look. It's a lot more accessible for the whole edition, and of course the art continues with this. There's lots of really great art throughout. I'll flip through, and as I get to ones that I love, I will show them. Here's a great one of a map of a dungeon. So again, like really good art direction and really great, easy to read. The text is really great, just like the whole edition as a whole.
Do you start out at first level?
That's a great question. So you don't start out at first level. It says to start at second or third level.
Okay.
Which is interesting. They have an adventure that you can, like a pre-adventure you can do. And I know a lot of people are into like 0 level sessions. So you could maybe do like a 0 into that adventure and then into this one. So this is kind of a build-up, which I think is good because there's nothing worse than starting a campaign at first level and then your group falling apart shortly after. Then you can like run the introduction to that first session a few times if you're having trouble getting a group together.
Make sure there's a catch for the story.
Yeah, but you will start at second level, and I think it goes. Some of the bosses are challenge rating like 18, 19, 20. Whoa. So it's gonna span pretty far.
Take you for
a little while. So again, this has the complete adventure in it, from second level all the way to 18. And the way they have this laid out, I really like in certain ways. I've played a couple of the Pathfinder adventure pats, which actually Casey and I have both been on both sides of each other's adventure pats.
APs.
And what makes this different is where the adventure pats, of course, come out in installments, and you feel like there's a definite order of how certain things are going to come out. This feels a little bit more sandboxy. So the whole second chapter is just really about talking about the surrounding area. And not just like the surrounding area of the events of the campaign, but it takes place in the Faerun setting. So it talks about like what's going on in Neverwinter and what's going on in Waterdeep and why your adventurers might come to those particular locations, which is really great because PCs are going to go off the rails. And so they kind of account for that. So here's like, again, I just love this picture of this long bridge. The different areas that they talk about are just beautiful. Even if you're just looking for adventure ideas, this might be a great thing to just flip through. The areas are set up like I was saying, pretty sandboxy. I'm trying to find like a map of the town. Area. Yeah, they have like a little map of the town, and they really just give it to you. Here's a map of the town. They give you just the town and everything that's in it, kind of at once. So that way, rather than worrying about where's the first stop the PCs need to make, it kind of just gives you the sandbox. These are the things that's going on, and it feels like they do that pretty much throughout. Like they'll give you some pretty large areas to get through. So yeah, like again, here's this whole map of the region. They just kind of lay out what's happening. Including a lot of side quests that are totally unrelated. And they don't like put them throughout. They give you all the side quests at the end, so you don't feel like they're necessary or you're missing something. You can either use them or not.
But if there's a gap in experience or they've skipped something, you might be able to go back and...
Or also there's just some interesting plot hooks. Like there's one that's really stuck out to me is they're looking for a particular, like a legendary dwarven axe item, which is going to help them out later on because they're going to have this awesome axe. And yeah, they just sort of have like they talk about an area and then they say reason to visit. And so like, here's why your PCs might go there, and this is kind of what to expect there. So those are the things that I really love about it, is that it's more open and kind of a little bit of a more free-form world that they've just laid out for you, that then the PCs can really choose. A lot of the Pathfinder stuff can be really linear.
Yeah.
Like go here, go there, and like you kind of know what the next step is, and it's pretty obvious, which can sometimes feel a little stifling, and this certainly doesn't feel like that.
Sets the ground and the potential for, you know, continuing, because I know that a lot of the Pathfinder adventures, they like kind of end, and sometimes there's like so many unanswered questions that like
Sure.
if you have like a laid out terrain and area and places they've been, then if it's open world, you could definitely
keep the campaign going past
breaking point.
So the actual story is it's interesting. It uses the elementals in a way that I haven't seen them being used as cults, which is certainly interesting. There's four elements, and there's 4 elemental cults that are each wielded by a sort of, I guess, champion is the right word.
Yeah.
And the champions are certainly interesting. There's one that's a Medusa. There's one that's like an elf who has wings. There's one that's a tiefling. So they're certainly varied and interesting.
Okay. So do the cults feel different rather than just like reskins?
That's actually the first thing that they talk about in this book on page 8, is they talk about each of the different cults, because they're all secretly part of the same cult. They're all working towards the same goal, which is bringing these evil elementals into the material plane. Okay. And they have like each, like, here's the symbol for the black earth, and they tell you like this is how they make the symbol with their hands. Let's see, this is the X one for fire, or no, excuse me, this is for the waves, this is for water. So they have a big long thing about each of the earth cults, how they interact with both each other and how they interact within the same cult. And then they have a little bit about their leaders, which is all very interesting. But then, because there's sort of 4 cults that are all equal, coming to the back, because I always like to flip to the end of an adventure to like see, okay, who's the boss? Like, who's the big bad? And there isn't really too much. There's sort of like 4 big elementals. There's a big evil fire elemental who, you know, is a flame with a frowny face. And that to me feels just a little like not quite enough. I feel like if I finished a campaign and I beat these bad guys, I sort of, and maybe that's just the Zelda in me coming out, is that I sort of want, after you beat all the mini bosses, and you actually only have to fight one of the big bad elementals at the end. I sort of feel like I want that Ganon to come out.
Oh, okay.
And to have to take him, like the bad guy who's been behind it.
Well, you would assume that they're all trying to summon him in, so I guess, you know, whether or not they're successful, you have to stop one summoning circle. Which is pretty interesting as a choice.
Yeah. It certainly is going to create like which one, because they all have different challenge ranks. They're not equal. Mm-hmm. And I imagine based on your powers, one will be easier than the other. But, you know, not having that big bad
want to have a master hand in the background.
A little bit, yeah. That's kind of just, again, flipping through here. I haven't played through the adventure, but that I sort of feel like would be a little. I would certainly maybe want that. Are
there diverse encounters, or is it just kick down the door, fight elemental?
You know, they do a pretty good job of having enemies that are inspired by the elements, but aren't just like waves of elementals. They bring in some new elementals that are harnessed by like armor, which is kind of a neat idea. But again, when you like look at them, they're gonna look like elementals with armor. But they do have, each of the cultists has a distinct look to them. So even when you're fighting these cultists, they're gonna feel a little bit different. And of course, they have different tactics.
I'm gonna say, do you feel the creep, at least? I mean, you haven't played it, but do you feel the creep as like, you know, everything's getting different and harder as you go through?
You know, I'm not exactly sure how that will work. I haven't been able to read it cover to cover yet. but there's 4 elemental temples, so I don't know if there's a particular order you have to do them in. I imagine you'd be able to do them in any order, but I don't know how that works encounter-wise.
Or at least leveling wise.
Yeah, just again flipping. I'll see if I can find there's a temple of earth, there's a temple of fire, water, and air, and each of them are connected. But so like here's earth. I showed fire before. Here's earth. They're all pretty big. Which again, Dungeons and Dragons. If you love dungeons, if you watch my Threshold stuff, I try to use dungeons really sparingly because I know that they can be a slog. We did the Shattered Star campaign, which was all dungeons.
Oh my gosh.
And that kind of like got to be daunting because you finish one dungeon.
But some people, that's what they crave. The Diablo players out there who just want to do layer after layer of another dungeon.
Sure.
It's like that's their thing.
And this might be a good compromise between that.
Is there out of dungeon?
Yeah, I mean, there's the big overworld, so it does feel a little bit like overworld with some of these dungeons, and I think the dungeons are all connected. And they're all certainly connected to then like a 5th dungeon on the bottom,
you
which
said
is
everything was
where the elementals are actually trying to come out. So I guess sort of wrapping up, I would recommend. Would I recommend this? I would definitely recommend if you've never run a Dungeons and Dragons campaign before, getting something like this that's complete. And this looks like a pretty good one because, again, elementals are kind of easy to understand. There's not like a lot of politics. It's not like you're jumping into psionics or some kind of like weird
mechanic or gimmick or...
yeah, exactly. Not necessarily a Kingmaker or even a Crimson... A lot of the Pathfinder adventure paths can be kind of daunting because they throw something weird at you. This looks like a really good introduction to the game. Probably much like Horror of the Dragon Queen was. If you are, I haven't had a chance to look through that, but if you love Avatar The Last Airbender, there's plenty of elemental inspired stuff that's in here for that, because your characters of course will be able to wield lightning and fire and all those. There's plenty of spells and races in the back. I shouldn't say there's plenty of spells, there's a few spells, but they're all also I think available. They're the same ones available in the PDF that was released for free, but they're in here for you as a GM.
Is going back? I always like the resources in the back of the books. Is that at least push it past from good to great? Or
you reminded me of my favorite part.
Okay.
This is not my second favorite part, but I love this. They have a lot of concept design art in the back, which is really cool, just for like ideas for like designing stuff to give you kind of an idea of like how the world works and what it looks like. But my favorite part, actually, because it's written for Faerun, but it then has a whole thing in the back for if you want to set the adventure other places. How do you do that? So it starts out with Dark Sun. It has like what you need to change to play it in Dark Sun, what you need to do for Dragonlance, what you need to do for Eberron, and then it has a little section on what you need to do for your own world. So of course, as I'm flipping through here, I'm like, well, where would I put this in Threshold? Wow. And it's like, I'd probably put it, it says like a remote area, so I'm like, okay, I'll put it in the Nullway, and I'll just change the names of some of the cults to be more related to our Sphinxes. Yep. So it's kind of cool.
That's at least thought-provoking and very open-ended, as opposed to having this, no, it has to happen here because it's built into those worlds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's not a bunch of like in references to other things. You can wholesale set it in all these other places. It's just written for the Drow and for Faerun, which that actually really impressed me because it's really making it, really opening it up so that because of course, again, comparing it, obviously the comparisons are going to be there for the Pathfinder stuff. They're like in their world, they're set there. There's important politics, important politics that are happening elsewhere that you kind of need to know about. If people
are familiar with an area, then that's going to be like, then they'll have background knowledge.
And this is really great that you can put it other places. And I really like that. I would love to see this, actually thinking about it, set in Eberron, just to see how, because they have so much like magic tech. With the lightning rails, which are like harnessed by elementals and stuff. I would love to see how that all factors in, and the Warforged and but
Warforged elemental cultists.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, again, really thought-provoking. Really a beautiful book. Here we go. It says right on the back, levels 1 through 15. So that makes sense. At 15, it'll be a deadly encounter for 15th level characters. Challenge rating 18.
But you could start at 1. I guess so.
with the extra material.
So where does that extra material come?
I think it's a second little other adventure because they don't have it in here. They reference it, but they don't actually have it. So yeah, I would definitely say for people who want to start the game, you will need the player's handbook and the Dungeon Master's Guide. So it's not like an adventure in a box. It's not like the starter kit. You are going to need the other stuff for it. Yeah, I would definitely say if you haven't run an adventure before, something like this would be really great, and it looks like a really easy one to get into. That kind of has its own tone and own flair, and they definitely give you the tools to incorporate it into your own game if maybe you have a world that you love. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Again, Princes of the Apocalypse, Elemental Evil. If you like what I'm saying, go out and get it. Hope I could shed some light on it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you later.